Waking up from the has-been. As we spoke about yesterday, the mind stores things with great deals of emotion, great emphasis and energy, and the tendency is for that, when it moves in us, to knock us unconscious. And this practice of being aware of yourself as a human being, as love, allows you to awaken from that. It's interesting. We live in a culture now where if you are awake to the, should I say, some of the abuses that have and continue to happen in our culture, there's a whole faction of people that's made that something derogatory. Gee, I'm aware that there are people who are being abused and have been abused for too long, and there needs to be fairness. And so this word woke has happened, and I think it's time for us all to be woke. It's time for us to wake up and recognize the connectedness of all of us as human beings. I love what Einstein says. He says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. And yet, those who would wake up to the oneness and therefore the need for justice and fairness are being degraded as some kind of anomaly. And it just speaks of the kinds of brainwash that have taken over our culture. I understand in Florida there are books being banned left, right, and center, and I saw an article on it yesterday, and one of the books that the state came in and collected at a school system in Florida, where they had bins and bins and bins and bins, like huge bins of books. And one of them, somebody was showing them on camera and going through the books, and one of them was The Life of Rosa Parks. It's like, you banned the life of Rosa Parks? What's going on? And it's time for us to wake up to who we are, and the fact that the truth is there really is only one of us, and that optical delusion that the mind creates of separateness is something that leaves us in this ego state, this state of being edged out of the experience of ourselves and others as love and the connectedness of all of life. And so waking up to the truth of who we are becomes a really key part of the process. And then being able to forgive the brainwashed noise that perpetuates the insanity of that sleep state of mind, of that state where one thinks one is superior to others, and to recognize that truth is, if we could alter the rate of vibration in which our eye receives information, we'd see that we are all literally interconnected. And the work of awakening from the unconsciousness of, somebody superior to somebody else is a major piece of work, especially if you're the one that's on the end of thinking, I'm superior. And to recognize that, truthfully, we are all energetically linked. We are all energetically connected. So the work of awakening from the has-been, from the past. If I define a word as a tool of communication, I was in a classroom and we had interaction going on, I might say, so is that a reasonable definition for you? A word is a tool of communication? Most people, yeah, that's a reasonable definition. And being a tool of communication, of course, communication indicates that there's an interaction between two or more, right? So most people would agree with that. And then I would invite you to notice that there are words running in your head right now that you're not speaking to me or anybody else. If words are tools of communication indicative of an interaction between two, who's in there with you? One of the base lessons in the Course in Miracles is, I have given this all the meaning that it has for me. By the way, if you'd like to join us tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern Time, I'm sure Jeanie's already put a link in the notes. We'll be doing the Hear My Voice Global Book Club out of London, England at 8:30 tomorrow night. Is a time in London, but here it's 3:30 in the afternoon. And the facilitator of the book club is starting a Course in Miracles study. Having heard us and others speak about it, she decided to pick it up and, or at least to go ahead and schedule it. And then she ordered the book and realized what she'd taken on, that it was a big chunk of work. I suggested she'd need 2 years for it. But in any event, I agreed that tomorrow afternoon, 3:30, I'll be doing a lesson called Introduction to Advanced Understanding of A Course in Miracles. And it's one of the DVDs that we normally sell through our website to support this work. And last night, Jeanie and I watched it. It's a video that I created, I'm not even sure exactly, but somewhere in the range of 35 years ago, and haven't watched it since. So since I was going to present that lesson in the Global Book Club tomorrow, I decided to go back and give a listen to that video. And frankly, I was absolutely blown away in the best sense. The way that the information came together, there's a part of me that knew it was a good lesson when I did it, but looking at it from the perspective of 35 years later, there is so much in that lesson. It's so profound, and it, basically brings quotes forward from many places. I think I cover something like 70 different quotes, and the page number and the line in the book is integrated into the video. In any event, I was going to do that lesson live, but after watching it, I contacted Yinka and said, I couldn't duplicate that lesson today. I don't know how I'd even do that lesson. And so what do you say we just watch the video? And so if you want to watch one of the videos from our catalog that normally has got a fee attached to it, then please join us tomorrow at 3:30 in the afternoon. Again, you can look on whyagain.org under events, and there'll be a link there for the Zoom call. And or I'm sure, as I say, Jeanie's put it in the notes already. If you want to join us, it'd be awesome. After we watch the video, it's about an hour and a half, so it'll be 3:30 till 5 o'clock. We're going to do a Q&A. So if you'd like to join us for that, it'd be fun to have you there. But the core, one of the bottom line in the context of the conversation we're having now in the Course is that I have given all of this the meaning that it has for me. And it kind of parallels where Michael Singer's going with this book called The Untethered Soul, where he's pointing out this voice that moves in us and all the things this voice has to say that are totally and completely insane, meaningless, part of a brainwash that's been going on for generations and generations. So it has a similar tact and a similar goal of waking up from the past in the mind and actually being able to live fully awake and aware in the present moment as active present love. And in the context of the name of Michael's book, untethered from the mind, untethered from the past, all the meanings that we've had, drummed into us, sometimes beaten into us, sometimes conclusions we've come to through misinterpreted, painful experiences. And to recognize that it is my mind that's having this conversation and it's giving meanings that degrade the possibility of an actual present moment experience. So in a very similar way, at least my understanding of Michael Singer's book and work is to bring people to the same places we're working with as the forgiveness process, as Course in Miracles, to wake up to and develop the faculties for experiencing what's actually going on at any given moment from an energetic level, rather than experience interpretations from the mind and think that our mind's interpretations are in fact the experiences we're having. Maybe I need to clarify that a little bit. It may be the experience that we're having, but it's not the truth of the experience that's being expressed. And so, of course, that tool of dismantling the past, dismantling from the mind what never belonged. There has been literally a chapter in the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? By the way, if you haven't read the book and you'd like to get a copy of it, unfortunately, we can't sell you one because it's out of print. However, you can go to our website, and if you go to whyagain.org/book, you'll see there's a free link. You can download the book in any one of a dozen or so different languages. And or you can go on Amazon or eBay. You know, the book was published better than a quarter of a century ago. And fortunately, way back then, we sold enough copies that it's pretty much spread around the globe. And there are always used copies available on YouTube on eBay and Amazon. I'm sure other used bookstores as well, but then they're usually, not much more than a couple of bucks, although we've seen people have them listed at $3,000. Like, I'm not sure why, but I guess somebody figures if somebody comes along and, decides to buy it, they'll buy it. But in any event, so it's out there, and the whole focus is that the only reason, if you're stuck in a why is this happening to me again experience, is because you don't know how to change your mind. As Jean started out talking with Arya, what a new level of learning for a child of 4 is to recognize that her feelings, her emotions are shadows of her own thoughts. Like in a world where the most common conversation is, you made me mad, you made me sad, you made me afraid, you hurt me, that upset me, they disturbed me, all based in lies and projection. And so here we have a child of 4 who is understanding that, my emotions are a result of my thinking, and I have the ability to change my thinking. Go back 2,000 years ago, and Paul spoke about being transformed by the renewal of your mind. And in fact, this work is about dropping the body's mind, what most people would normally call mental function, and trading that in for a different mind. A mind that was called in the ancient teachings the mind of love, or the mind of Christ. That mind's always available to us as well. And there's nothing religious about that word or about that idea. Actually, in Aramaic, the word Christ would be more literally the buttered one or the anointed one. If one had awakened, had gone beyond the normal mind of the world, and was woke from that mind, that they then took on and began to own the mind of love in them. And so that was called the mind of Christ, and it became confused with the name of a man rather than recognizing, actually in Aramaic, the word Christ is a label that's given to an office. So, if I were to run in an election and win the post of mayor of the city, you might call me Mayor Michael, but mayor isn't part of my name, it's a title. The word Christ in Aramaic is a title as well. It's not a religious idea, it's not the name of a man. There are many confusing interpretations of what those original words meant in Aramaic, and when we get back to the original words, it all just starts to fall in place and make sense. So joining each and every one in waking from the has-been, and delighted that you're here to be part of this conversation. And Miss Jean, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet. So somebody press 1 and you are first in line without waiting. We'd love to hear from you. Direct the conversation here today. How can we support you?
If you're listening on one of those stations where we can't see you on our control panel, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show directly. And then if you push 1, that will raise a hand in the control panel, and Jeanie will know that you want to talk to us. She'll open your microphone, we'll have a conversation. So what's on your mind? How can we support you? Anything else moving for you at this moment, Jeanie?
No, I'm good. But, we did have a hand go up. And there it is. I think it's Miss Julie in Ashland, Oregon. 541, you're on the air.
Sweet.
Hi.
Hey there, young lady.
Hi.
Welcome.
Well,
how are things in Oregon?
Welcome.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm in my storage unit doing the last day of getting everything in the box and taped up and labeled where it's going. And so I have I'm going to get it done today. I feel good about it.
All right. Well, congratulations. That's a big job.
No kidding. I've been through a few roller coasters, but I just feel like today is, you know that expression, be, do, have? And so we can be human beings or human doings or human havings. And so
right.
A lot of this process has been just really letting go of a lot of what I have and feeling the goodness of the flow as I give it away, and observing and being aware of what I'm still hanging on to. And so
right.
Today I'm finalizing a lot of that. And then, but it's about well-being and well-doing and well-having. And so I've added that to that expression, and it's helping me really discern what the meaning of all my stuff is. So, and the purpose it has in my life. So, and I'm glad you're doing that, one of those DVDs. Do you know which one it is? Or because there are only a couple
yes.
of them for the Course in Miracles.
Yeah. Introduction, Advanced Understanding of A Course in Miracles.
Oh yeah.
It's a lesson I did some 35 or so years ago in Tampa, Florida, at a recording studio there. And as I say, I hadn't watched it until last night, and I was actually quite impressed with the way it came together. It's like I didn't I didn't realize that I was able to assemble information in that way that long ago. So it was fun to watch.
Yeah, it's innately you.
Yes.
So, yes, I must.
Well, if you've got the space to join us, it'll be 3:30 Eastern time.
Yes, that's 12:30 this time. That's right in the middle of my usual doing, my well-doings. But I can. I'm putting it on the calendar, so we'll see if I can.
Cool. Well, and it's a Zoom call. You can always just link in and have a headset on with your phone in your pocket and listen, and go ahead and do your doing at the same time.
Yeah, I can do.
Although it might be beneficial. Yeah, it might be beneficial with the work you're doing to just really take time to sit with it and focus on it, because it's a really profound lesson, powerful.
Yeah, and I have come across my Course in Miracles book too, so I can pull that aside, pack that more like next month. Anyway, well, I better go now, but I do appreciate the two of you so much, and I came in a little late, but I think that book, The Untethered Soul, is what Jeanie was reading from. That seems to be very complimentary. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It fits perfectly. Cool.
Okay.
All right, young lady, have a
well,
blessed one.
All right. Thanks so much.
Okay,
you too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, if you're out there in listener land, 563-999-3581. Call that number you're listening to the show directly. And then if you push 1, that raises hand in the control panel, and Jean will know that you want to talk to us.
And we have a hand up.
Awesome.
So it's a really long number showing up on the switchboard. 4670 is the first 4 numbers. You're on the air. Who do we have?
This is Peter.
Hey, welcome, young man.
Hello.
Glad to hear your voice. How do you be?
I'm good.
How are things in Sweden?
Good. Spring going over into summer, which is great. So welcome. After the long gray winter, it's very
long, deep winter there.
Yeah.
Yeah, our winter is very short here by comparison.
So that's wonderful. Spending time in the garden, and it's lovely.
Cool. Sweet. Well, what's on your mind today? What's happening in your world?
Well, not really having prepared, but here we are. What you just spoke about, human being, human doing, human having. And I did a wake-up sheet recently, and on 6, I got down to, I see that this deep-rooted core belief of not being enough is surfacing. And I thought to myself, it seems like an oxymoron in and of itself, because shouldn't it really be human doing there? Because human being, I mean, that is complete. And yet the belief I have is that the human being, Peter, is not enough. Do you see what I'm getting at?
One of those old basic power person thought disorders. Yes, sir. Yeah, the first thought that breaks us away, in infancy and in very early years, breaks us away from living as and connected to this presence of love, this state of being. The first thought disorder that most of us are fed, and it's usually from a power person, is a thought something along the lines of, you're broken, wrong with you, and you can't be fixed. That's like the most basic tragedy in the world for virtually everyone.
And it's a lie.
And it's a lie. Yes, it forces us to split off from the truth of who we are and create a whole total false identity. And you go back to Yeshua, and this is what he was dealing with, and the way he said it is, in order for you to live, you've got to die. That false self, the identity you bought into that's based in the lie, ultimately has to be forgiven, i.e. removed.
And is that, I don't know scriptures at all, and I hear this statement, the original sin. So would that be referred to the original sin, when that first moment when you give up, or I give up, the connection with the source, the creator, and I buy into this instead?
Buying into the generational thought, you're broken, would be it. Yes, that would be my take exactly. And it's been going on generation after generation after generation forever. And it's passed from one generation, unknowingly, from one generation to the next. The last time we talked, you were talking about the work you were doing with your son and some of the dynamics there. And I from what I heard of what you were saying, I would put that in terms of what you were trying to deal with, break down, and work through with your son were the original power person messages that you gave him. To crack that and move through it. Would that be accurate? Would that my understanding of that be accurate?
Yeah, it is mainly clearly up here with me, up for me, and yes, my son actually Elliot is now visiting with us, and with my father's passing still very fresh. So it's it's. I mean, I'm the center of this, definitely, and yes, it's spinning off to both ways, so to speak. My grandfather has also been a lot around me, so yes. I don't even remember. I wasn't thinking I was going to go back and listen to, because I don't even remember at what point that the floodgate opened last time I called into the show. I mean, I remember the topic and the issue, and but I don't remember what it was that actually opened the floodgate the way it did.
Yeah, I don't have immediate recall of that specifically either.
Yeah. No, I'll be thinking I was going to re-listen to it and revisit that. But I did remember having the thought, because the sensation was almost as strong as way back then when you sat with me, when I had the experience of really giving up the connectedness, the source, and this was almost as powerful. And that's when I had this thought of, oh, is this what they mean about the original sin? When the first time you can recall when you actually give up love for whatever it is that you're giving it up for.
That would be it. That would be it. And I certainly join you in ferreting it out and removing it. And you know, when the physicist Yeshua said a little leavening leavens the whole loaf, he was talking about how if enough of us would do that piece of work, it would open the space for a mass awakening from that original energy that's off the mark. Jeanie, you had a thought to share?
I was just going to say that was back on May the 19th, and we were talking about the power person dynamic, and Michael actually had quoted the song by Hank Williams, Living Out the Family Tradition, and you had talked about having a conversation in connectedness with Tanya that was really great the night before, and then that morning all new stuff had surfaced, and Michael had been talking about the vitality being strengthened when two are connected, and the pain of knowing the answer and yet not being able to fix it, and dissolving the inner voice and the inner dialogue from the generational pain. So that was but that was back on the 19th.
Yeah, that's what it was. The pain came up really strong. The pain of not being able to fix it all. There we go. Oh, I remember because I had several questions. Yeah.
It's eminently repairable.
Say it again?
I say it's eminently repairable, and you know, where Jeanie started the conversation about Arya is to recognize that it's a shadow of a thought. The pain, the trauma of it is simply a shadow of that thought disorder, the original thought disorder that we bought into, and to let loose of that thought, to really forgive that thought, so that that block was no longer present.
I remember having, some more question that on the 19th, as Jeanie said, and some days before you had been talking about the Power Person worksheet, and my question was that even not doing that specific worksheet, doing the forgiveness process, and even if I don't consciously state or voice out that, oh, this is the power person dynamic, by doing the forgiveness process, in and of itself, it will be dealing with the power person dynamic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't remember whether we talked about it that day, but there's a worksheet or a chart entitled The Physiological Effects of Emotional Suppression. And you might want to, jump on the website and get that chart, because it literally lays out how the endocrine system is shut down by those thought disorders, where they tend to be stored. And there's kind of a progression, literally a progression of sin, disintegrative mind energy, that ultimately shuts the whole system down and kills us, that we kill ourselves with it. And when there's a sample, the first one is you're broken, there's something, you're not fixable. And then how the shutdown tends to proceed from there. And that if you look at that particular chart, you'll see there's a downward arrow on the right-hand side, which is disease, suffering, and death. And on the left-hand side, there's an upward arrow when you start, looking at the thought disorders and forgiving us to those. Then moving up the other side is how to get back to aliveness and back to our natural state, which is called enthusiasm, which comes from the root word entheos, theos being the creator, that we're literally designed, when you recognize the creator's love, we're literally designed to live in and as love. And the world knocks that experience out of us and then gives us this false idea of now somebody else is going to supply your love. You have to go out and find somebody to love you, or find somebody to love, and you're going to supply it to them, which leads to nothing but frustration and more trauma and pain, because nobody can do that for you, and you can't do that for anybody else. But we can look at each thought disorder, move it out of the system, and progressively move back to the point where there's nothing in the mind to separate us from the truth of who we are any longer. And it's only thoughts that do that.
Comes around, goes around. I still remember
Yes.
the first time I heard you speak of that chart back 25 years ago at Heartland, and I remember when you were talking about enthusiasm. To me, that was just a word. I didn't really have an understanding of that. And then when you explained entheos, and I thought that was so beautiful, and I've always remembered that. And as you were telling it now, realizing that I have more enthusiasm in my life now than I had 25 years ago. So thankful for that.
Mm-hmm. And literally, that would translate more God, more of the presence of love. And that the game of the world is to shut us out of that. And by shutting us out of that, then we have kings that become our gods. And kings want to keep it that way. Those who want to rule the world have to shatter our direct relationship with ourselves as a presence of love in order to take us over and get us to do the crazy things that people do for kings. Like go out and make war on other people and steal their property and justify that in the name of war. So many crazy things have been done to separate us from the truth of who we are.
I laughed at your comment the other day. You said civil war. There's no such thing as a civil war.
Right. Oxymoron, big time.
never thought of that, but yeah, I had a good laugh about that one.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's a crazy idea.
Interestingly enough, because what I said now, or realizing when Jeanie was reading from what happened on 19th, that the pain for me was the little child not being able to fix the world, i.e. mom and dad, and make everything great. And as I shared the 2 weeks with my father before him passing, and I don't think I've ever been able to be as connected, be experiencing the love that I am as much as I did those 2 weeks. And the one time that I did not, I really lost it, was when, in my mind, he did something that was wrong, not supporting the healing process that we were aiming for. And the other day, Elliot, there was something with Elliot, and in my world, it was the thought that presented in my mind was that he was doing wrong, he was not doing the right thing. It's exactly the thing that I just have a ton of it in my system, and then so clearly with my father and with my son, the exact same thought pattern, thought disapproval.
Handing out your daily dose of disapproval, having been handed that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. And constantly, not constantly, but often having that, in like you said, with now the Michael Singer book, the voice within, and so often the voice being just that voice.
Right. And many people
so
would
ready
say,
to
well,
let go of that one.
Yeah, many people would say, well, but how could I possibly approve of that, quote-unquote, wrong behavior? And letting go of disapproval doesn't mean you have to approve. It means you simply stand as a space of being, as a space of love, whatever's going on. So if I see someone in a place of what my mind says is error, which may or may not be error for them, do I have to give up functioning as love to be part of that? And the answer is, the only thing that will stop me from functioning as love is that voice in my head that gives this a meaning that says, oh, well, now I have to commit my error to match theirs.
Yeah, because really the love is called for more than ever in a situation like that. And the situation with my father was, I mean, he was dealing with everything that he was dealing with, and it seemed that as soon as things got a little bit better, he found a cigarette and smoked. And with his lungs being the major thing we were dealing with, and
right,
him taking a cigarette, more than anything, it was just showing that how lost he was, and he wasn't able to stay connected to his source. And I answered that because it felt like he took a dagger and stabbed me with it. And there was nothing of that happening, but that's how it felt. I mean, that he was just completely wrecking everything.
So that was the thought, completely wrecking everything. Was that a thought disorder that was fed to you as a child, that you were completely wrecking everything? Did that tie in at all with what happened with Elliot?
Yes. I mean, that's the whole scenario here now. Like I said on the 19th, it's not that they told that I was wrecking it, but watching mom and dad being drunk, him wrecking the situation, and the pain I experienced was that I wasn't able to fix it. I wasn't able to fix mom and dad.
Yeah. So my offering at this point, I think one of the most powerful things you could do around that whole circumstance that happened with Elliot would be to do a responsibility communication, to write out, take the responsibility communications rules that are on the website, and there are 2 or 3 sample letters, and really sit down and write that whole responsibility communication out with him in that circumstance, and that will uncover the deepest parts. Remember in the codependence worksheet, the turnaround is that you look at what your advice is to them, and then recognizing how projection works, that I've given them the advice that I need to follow. So how am I going to follow my own advice here? If you looked at the piece of advice you would have given Elliot in that situation, where in your life have you not followed that advice? And where is it time for you to follow that advice?
Last night, the very exact same scenario happened with Tanya. So,
and what was your advice to her?
She was going to do her work. She was going to face her the disintegration. I didn't say this because I knew it was not going to go well, but I had it clearly lined out what she was going to do. When are you finally going to sit down and face this pain that you're experiencing so clearly now, my dear beloved wife, Peter?
So, Peter, when are you going to sit down and face that pain?
Well, I'm sitting down right now, so how about now?
Yay. Right on track. So it might be a good worksheet to do, tying this in. It sounds like the universe is really knocking on your door. It'll take some time to, look at the responsibility communication perhaps in terms of the situation with Elliot. But with that being so fresh with Tanya last night, what was your goal for her? And what happens if you cancel the goal? For her to sit down and do her work, to face that pain. What comes up in your mind when you think about that? Which is what you wanted from Dad, which is what you wanted from your son, right? Now, of course, the question you ask of yourself is, so who's the common link in these experiences? Who was there at every one of them?
Exactly.
Breathing? Are you breathing?
Yes.
Good. When did you start?
Breathing or...
Go for it.
Breathing and crying, breathing and laughing this time, breathing and crying last time. Well, this morning I did a wake-up sheet on competition, meaning competition with archery, and coming down to the forgiveness process of it, it was so clear that I could, and the pattern that was surfacing was that I can't make it. I'm not strong. I was not strong enough. I'm not good. I can't make it, and I lose it. And at some point, it became so clear that the Swedish word here, compete, was the trigger, and it was so clear that I was interchangeable to life. That life, I can't do it, I can't handle it, I don't have what it takes, I'm not good. So it was, again, like you say now, who was there every time? Well, I'm there every time, and it's that.
Good breath.
And that was the pain last time also, that I'm not strong enough, I'm not good enough, that I can't do it, I can't fix it all.
So I cancel my need to be strong enough? Cancel I need to be good enough? And I cancel my need to fix it all?
It's like canceling for the 10,000th time.
77 times 70, this is your core issue.
Big time. And then the pain comes. The pain that I can't fix it.
Well, I'd offer that's another thought disorder. And the truth is, you are fixing it right now. Not finished yet, but you are doing it right now. It's a thought disorder to think you can't and you're not. Because here you are, you're doing it. And look at the progress you've made. Look at the fruit of your work. You know, that time with your father, to me, it was like just such a powerful reward, such a powerful benefit of the years of work that you've put in. That the average person would just go out, you know, if the family tradition was to go get drunk, the average person when that kind of stress occurred would just be out getting drunk. Instead, you're standing as a space of active present love for healing one of, you know, the biggest issues that can happen in a family system. You are healing it. You have healed monumental quantities, and here you are at the next level. And in your genes, there are probably an uncountable number that are saying, yes, Peter, open this gate. I'm ready for this energy to go. Will you process it for me? And you'll drain that trauma energy off for 1,000 generations.
I actually have my grandfather on my side now as I'm jumping up and down. It's exciting.
I hear you. So we're with you holding the space, and the show's going to cut us off any minute, but we'll just let it run through to completion and just hang with you. Breathe with you. Admire and acknowledge your courage and your strength, your willingness and your intelligence. It's pretty powerful, pretty profound. Thank you for your willingness. It's powerful, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you.
Powerful gift. I can hear 1,000 generations in there saying, "Oh my God, somebody, in the bloodline. Somebody finally is overcoming our original sin. Whew. And when you're healed, you're never healed alone. And we're here holding the space with you.